Welcome back to the ProTicker podcast.
Glad to be here.
You know we like to do a deep dive into all the stuff you send us.
Right.
Pulling out the good bits and getting you up to speed.
Yeah.
This time you've given us quite the challenge.
Yeah.
Election market predictions.
Okay.
Specifically, you wanted to understand what strategist Tom Lee is saying
Interesting.
about how things might shake out.
Makes sense.
Are you getting ready for some market roller coaster rides? Trying to figure out what the smart money is thinking?
Yeah.
Or just curious how this whole election thing
Right.
might hit your portfolio? Whatever your reason, you've come to the right place.
Right.
The interesting thing here
Okay.
is that Lee is comparing this election
Yeah.
to the 2000 nail-biter Gore versus Bush,
Oh, right.
where all that uncertainty really messed with the markets.
It did.
So buckle up, because we're going to unpack
Okay.
Lee's predictions for both a potential market pop and a panic,
Interesting.
along with his specific stock recommendations
Uh-huh.
for each scenario.
What's fascinating about Lee's analysis
Yeah.
is that he's not just saying
Okay.
this candidate will win, so buy this stock.
Right.
He's emphasizing that the market's reaction
Okay.
hinges more on the perceived certainty of the outcome.
So it's not just about who wins.
Exactly.
It's about how decisive the win
That's
is.
exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Think of it like this.
Okay.
The market hates surprises.
I see.
It likes things to be predictable.
Mm-hmm.
So even if a candidate who is considered market-friendly wins,
Yeah.
if the win is super close or contested,
Right.
that uncertainty can still spook investors.
I remember the 2000 election.
Yeah.
All those recounts and legal challenges.
Uh-huh.
It was a mess.
Exactly.
Okay, so uncertainty equals market jitters.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the potential upside.
Sure.
What's this market pop scenario Lee is predicting?
In the pop scenario, Lee believes that if the election results are clear
Yeah.
and considered market-friendly,
Right.
certain sectors could see a significant surge.
Okay.
He's particularly bullish on growth stocks,
Interesting.
especially those tied to AI and cloud computing.
AI is definitely having a moment right now.
It is.
It feels like everywhere you turn.
Yeah,
And cloud computing, well, that's basically how the world runs now.
exactly.
These are trends that are already in motion.
Yes,
And Lee believes that a clear election outcome
right.
could accelerate them.
Mm-hmm.
He sees these areas as relatively safe bets,
Yeah.
even amidst political uncertainty,
Uh-huh.
simply because they're driven by such strong underlying fundamentals.
Exactly.
But what about the flip side?
Okay.
What happens if things don't go smoothly
Sure.
and we end up in the dreaded panic scenario?
If we have a delayed or contested outcome,
Mhm.
Lee predicts what we call a flight to safety.
And what does that look like?
This is a classic pattern
Okay.
where investors get nervous
Right.
and move their money into assets that are perceived as less volatile,
Okay.
like gold, treasuries, and even Bitcoin these days.
Gold. Isn't that a bit old-fashioned?
It might seem that way,
That
but
too.
gold has been a haven asset for centuries.
Right.
It's a physical asset with intrinsic value,
Hmm.
and people tend to flock to it
Yeah.
when they lose faith in other investments or
Right.
currencies.
So it's like the ultimate safety blanket for investors.
You could say that.
I get it. And treasuries,
Yeah.
those are government bonds, right?
Yes.
Okay.
U.S. Treasury bonds are considered extremely safe
Right.
because they're backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government.
Okay.
So when the market is freaking out,
Yeah.
investors park their money in treasuries
Right.
to preserve their capital and wait for the storm to pass.
Makes sense. And what about Bitcoin?
Sure.
I thought that was super volatile.
It can be.
Right.
But Lee is a longtime Bitcoin bull.
Mm-hmm.
He argues that Bitcoin acts as a hedge
Yeah.
against both political and economic instability.
Okay.
He believes that in a scenario where trust
Right.
in traditional institutions is eroding,
Mm-hmm.
Bitcoin's decentralized nature
Okay.
and limited supply
Yeah.
make it an attractive alternative.
Interesting. So it's like a digital version of gold in a way.
Some people do see it that way.
But whether or not you buy into the digital gold narrative,
Sure.
the key takeaway here is that in times of heightened uncertainty,
Right.
investors tend to gravitate toward assets
Mhm.
that they perceive as safe and stable.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got our potential pop and panic scenarios.
Yes.
Now, dying to know
Right.
how this translates into an actual investment strategy.
Sure.
What's Tom Lee recommending we do
That's
with
just
all this information?
What I find compelling about Lee's approach is that he's not advocating for an all-or-nothing strategy.
Okay.
He's suggesting a balanced approach.
Right.
Something he calls the granny shot portfolio.
Granny shot portfolio. That sounds adorable. Is this like a super safe, low-risk strategy?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
The idea behind the granny shot is that it's a portfolio of stocks
Okay.
that are designed to perform well
Yeah.
in a variety of market conditions.
I see.
They're like those basketball shots
Okay.
that are almost impossible to block, hence the name.
Okay. I'm starting to see the analogy.
Good.
So what kind of stocks make it into this granny shot portfolio?
Lee has several categories within the granny shot framework,
Okay.
but let's start with some of his core recommendations.
Okay.
First up, we have tech stocks,
Okay.
particularly those involved in AI and cloud computing.
Right.
He's bullish on this area.
Yeah.
Regardless of who wins the election,
Right.
seeing it as a solid medium to long-term bet driven by those ongoing trends we talked about.
Right. The AI revolution and the world moving to the cloud.
Exactly.
Those seem like pretty solid trends.
They are.
But is he talking about just any tech stock?
He's definitely not saying to just blindly throw money at any company with AI in its name. He's emphasizing companies with strong balance sheets,
Okay.
meaning they have a healthy financial position, and those with international exposure,
I see.
which can help buffer them against domestic economic turmoil.
Okay. So we're looking for financially sound companies with a global reach. Makes sense.
Right.
What else is in this granny shot portfolio?
Next, we have the classic safe havens,
Okay.
gold and treasuries.
So those are like the anchors of the portfolio.
Exactly.
Providing some stability if things get choppy.
Yes.
And speaking of riskier bets, we can't forget about Bitcoin.
Right.
Lee has been advocating for Bitcoin for a long time,
He has.
and he sees it as a potential hedge against inflation, which is a concern
Yes.
regardless of the election outcome.
Exactly.
So it's like a hedge against both political and economic uncertainty.
That's right.
That's interesting.
It is.
But let's get back to those granny shot stocks.
Sure.
What are some of the specific companies he's recommending?
He's got a pretty diverse list.
Okay.
But let's start with 3 of his top picks.
Right.
Upliven, Palantir, and MicroStrategy.
Okay, those names ring a bell, but I'm not super familiar with them.
Sure.
Can you break those down for me?
Of course.
Let's start with Upliven.
Okay.
What do they do?
Upliven is a mobile gaming and ad tech company.
Okay.
They're behind some of the most popular mobile games out there.
I see.
And they also have a very sophisticated platform for targeting ads to specific users.
Mobile gaming and ads. That sounds like a pretty volatile industry,
It can be.
especially with all the privacy changes happening.
Right.
Okay, so they're like the pros of ad targeting
You could say that.
in the mobile gaming world.
Yeah.
I could see how that would be an advantage in a shaky economy. What about Palantir?
Palantir is a data analytics and security company.
Okay.
They work with government agencies and big businesses, helping them make sense of vast amounts of data.
Data analytics. So they're like the big brother of the business world.
That's a bit of an oversimplification,
Okay.
but they are very good at what they do. Their software can analyze huge data sets to identify patterns and trends that would be impossible for humans to spot.
Okay. So they help organizations find the signal in the noise, which seems pretty valuable in this age of information overload.
Right.
And why does Lee like them as an election play?
He sees their expertise in data analysis and security as increasingly valuable when risks are perceived to be higher.
I see.
So in a world where cybersecurity threats are on the rise and geopolitical tensions are simmering, Palantir is well positioned to help organizations navigate these complex challenges.
Got it. So they're like the security blanket for the digital world. What about MicroStrategy?
MicroStrategy is an interesting one because it's a 2-for-1 deal. They're a software company, but they also hold a massive amount of Bitcoin.
Whoa. So they're a tech company that's also a Bitcoin whale.
That's one way to put it.
That's a bold move.
It is.
So it's like a way to get exposure to both the software market and the cryptocurrency market.
Exactly. And Little believes that MicroStrategy's CEO, Michael Saylor, is a visionary who understands the long-term potential of Bitcoin.
Okay, so we've got AppLovin, the mobile gaming ad wizards.
Yeah.
Palantir, the data security gurus, and MicroStrategy, the software company with a Bitcoin obsession.
Right.
Those are some interesting picks.
They are.
But I'm curious to hear about Lee's more under-the-radar recommendation.
Okay.
He mentioned something about Super Granny and Sleeper Granny picks.
Yeah.
What are those all about?
These are the companies he believes have even more upside potential, often because they operate in niche markets or are flying under the radar of most investors.
Ooh, I love those hidden gem stories.
Me too.
What are some of those picks?
Well, one of his Super Granny picks is Mankind Corp, a pharmaceutical company that's developing inhalable insulin.
Inhalable insulin. That sounds like a game changer.
It could be.
For people with diabetes.
It offers a more convenient and less invasive option for patients compared to traditional injections.
Okay.
Lee sees it as a potential blockbuster product.
I see.
That could disrupt the diabetes care market.
So it's a bet on innovation in healthcare.
It is.
I like it.
What else? Another Super Granny pick is Ultra Clean Holdings. They're a key player in the booming semiconductor industry.
Right.
Providing critical parts for the equipment that makes those tiny but powerful chips.
Right. We talked about the chip shortage earlier.
We did.
So they're basically profiting from the world's insatiable demand for semiconductors.
And Lee sees Ultra Clean as a company with a strong track record and a lot of room for growth.
Okay, so they're like the unsung heroes of the tech world.
Right.
Quietly making sure the whole thing keeps running. And what about his Sleeper Granny picks?
Sure.
Any standouts there?
One that's particularly interesting is Blueprint Medicines Corp, a biotech company focused on precision oncology.
Interesting.
They're developing targeted cancer treatments.
Wow, personalized cancer treatment.
Yes.
That's amazing.
It's one of the most promising areas of healthcare innovation.
Okay.
And Lee believes that Blueprint Medicines is at the forefront of this trend with the potential to significantly improve cancer treatment outcomes.
So it's a bet on the future of medicine, really.
It is.
I'm really digging these granny shot picks.
Me too.
They're all about finding companies that are well-positioned for the long haul.
Right.
Regardless of what happens in the short term, with the election or the economy.
That's exactly right.
So he's looking for companies that can hit those granny shots.
Yes.
The ones that are almost guaranteed to go in, no matter how much the market is shaking things up.
That's a great analogy.
And it's a smart approach for investors
right.
who are looking to navigate these uncertain times.
Exactly.
Well, this is all super fascinating.
It is.
But I feel like we've just scratched the surface.
Yeah.
There's so much more to unpack here.
I know.
What else can you tell us about Tom Lee's analysis?
You'll have to stay tuned for part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
Where we'll delve even deeper into Lee's predictions. And explore some more of his intriguing stock picks.
Can't wait to hear more.
See you then. Picking up where we left off. You know how Lee's been comparing this election to the 2000 one?
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason he keeps bringing it up.
Okay.
It's not just the uncertainty factor,
right,
but the potential for a real market shakeup if things drag on.
Yeah, I remember that whole hanging Chad situation.
Oh, yeah.
It felt like the country was holding its breath for weeks.
Exactly. And that kind of suspense isn't good for the markets.
Yeah.
Lee's team at Fundstrat dug into the historical data.
Okay.
And they found that when election outcomes are contested, markets can drop by 5 to 10%.
Wow, 5 to 10%.
Within days.
That's not just a little dip. That's a serious drop.
It is.
It really shows how much psychology drives market movements.
It does.
We're not always as rational as we think we are.
It's all about sentiment. When investors get nervous, they pull back.
Right.
And that can create a ripple effect.
Okay.
It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy sometimes.
Okay, so let's play this out.
Sure.
Let's say this election gets messy. And we're stuck in limbo for a while.
Right.
What does that actually look like for the markets?
Well, if we look back at the 2000 election, there's a pattern there that we might see repeated.
Okay.
Remember, the initial vote was on November 7th.
Right.
But then there were all those recounts and legal challenges.
All that.
The markets actually went up initially.
Really?
Kind of like a sigh of relief.
Right.
That at least there was a result. But then as the uncertainty dragged on, the markets started to sell off. And when the final decision finally came down in December, there was another big drop.
So it's not just the initial uncertainty, but the prolonged uncertainty that really does the damage.
Lee believes that as long as that cloud of uncertainty hangs over the market, investors are going to remain cautious.
Okay.
They'll hold back on making big moves and keep more cash on hand.
Right.
Just in case.
So a lot of sitting on the sidelines and waiting to see how things shake out.
Right.
But doesn't that create an opportunity?
It does.
Once the dust settles.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Lee points out that once the uncertainty is resolved, there's often a surge of capital back into the market.
Okay.
All that money that was sitting on the sidelines comes flooding back in, looking for opportunities.
Okay, so it's like a coiled spring.
That's a great way to put it.
All that pent-up energy waiting to be released.
And that surge is even stronger. Yeah.
If the election outcome is seen as market-friendly, meaning policies are in place that are perceived as good for business and economic growth.
So it's a bit of a waiting game.
It can be.
But for those who are patient and have a plan in place, there could be some real rewards to be had.
Exactly.
It's all about riding out the storm and being ready to seize the moment when things clear up.
Precisely. And that's where having a well-thought-out strategy, like Lee's Granny Shot portfolio, comes in.
Yeah.
It's about having a mix of assets that can perform well in different scenarios. So you're not caught off guard, no matter what happens.
Right. It's about being diversified and having some defense built into your portfolio so you can weather those market storms.
Right.
Speaking of storms, Lee also mentioned the Federal Reserve meeting that's coming up.
Yes.
What was his take on that? He's actually pretty optimistic about it.
Okay.
He shared some data indicating that historically, the market tends to perform well in the days and weeks following a Fed rate cut.
Interesting. So a rate cut could actually be a good thing?
It could be.
For the markets.
Rate cuts can be a double-edged sword.
Right.
They can stimulate the economy.
Yeah.
But they can also signal that the Fed is concerned about slowing growth.
Okay, I see.
But in this case, Lee believes a rate cut would be seen as a positive sign.
Right.
Especially if it coincides with a clear election outcome.
Okay, so we've got a few different scenarios playing out here.
We do.
A contested election could lead to a sell-off.
Yeah.
But a clear outcome combined with a Fed rate cut could spark a rally.
Exactly.
It's like a game of market chess.
It is.
Trying to anticipate all the possible moves.
And remember, Lee isn't just talking in broad strokes.
Right.
He's got those specific Granny Shot stock picks. Okay.
Those companies he believes can perform well under these various conditions.
Right. Those picks and shovels during the gold rush. Those companies that benefit no matter what happens in the broader market.
We talked about some of them in the last segment.
Right.
But he's got a whole roster of picks, and he breaks them down into different categories.
Okay.
In addition to his core Granny Shot picks, he also has those super granny picks.
Oh, yeah.
Which are companies he sees as having even more potential.
Oh, I remember you mentioning those.
You do.
Those are the ones that are a little more under the radar, right? Those hidden gems.
Exactly.
Okay, cool.
And then he has his sleeper granny picks, which are companies that he believes are even more deeply undervalued.
Okay.
And have the potential to deliver outsized returns over the long term.
Okay. Okay, so we've got Granny Shots.
Super grannies. And sleeper grannies.
Yes.
It's like a whole family of market-beating stocks.
I'm
really curious to hear about some of these lesser-known picks.
Okay.
What else is on Lee's radar?
Well, one of his sleeper granny picks is Amkor Technology. They specialize in semiconductor packaging and testing.
Okay.
Now, I know that might sound a bit mundane, but it's actually a crucial part of the chip-making process.
Wait, so they don't actually make the chips themselves?
They don't. Okay. They take those tiny chips, which are incredibly delicate and complex, and package them in a way that protects them and allows them to be integrated into all sorts of devices.
Got it.
They also test the chips to make sure they're functioning properly.
Okay, so they're like the quality control specialists.
You could think of it that way.
Of the chip world.
And with the global chip shortage still being a major concern, any company involved in semiconductor production is likely to be in high demand.
That makes sense.
It does.
We're increasingly reliant on these tiny chips for everything, from our smartphones to our cars to our refrigerators. It's like they're the building blocks of the modern world.
Exactly. And Lee sees Amcor as a way to profit from the tech boom without taking on the volatility of investing in individual tech stocks.
So it's like investing in the picks and shovels?
That's a great analogy.
During a gold rush, but for the tech industry.
And it's a strategy that can be applied to other industries as well.
That's interesting.
For example, another company in a similar vein is Exelis Technologies. They make ion implantation equipment.
Hold on. Ion implantation equipment. Can you explain what that is? It sounds pretty high tech.
It is. Basically, it's a process that uses beams of ions to modify the properties of materials. In this case, silicon wafers, which are the foundation of semiconductor chips.
Okay, so it's a very specialized piece of equipment.
It is.
That's crucial for making the chips that power our tech-driven world.
Right.
And Lee likes this company because...
Again, it's about playing into that global demand for high-performance chips.
Right.
As our devices get more sophisticated and require more processing power, the demand for these specialized chips and the equipment used to make them is only going to increase.
So it's bet on the continued advancement of technology and the companies that are making that advancement possible.
Right.
I like it.
Good.
What else is on Lee's list of sleeper grannies?
Another one he highlights is Veeco Instruments. They provide equipment for both semiconductor and LED manufacturing.
LEDs. Aren't those just light bulbs?
LEDs are a lot more than just light bulbs these days. They're used in everything, from smartphones and TVs to car headlights and traffic lights.
Interesting.
They're incredibly energy efficient and versatile, and the demand for them is growing rapidly.
Okay, so it's another play on the evolution of technology.
It is.
But how does this tie into the election and Lee's overall market outlook?
Well, regardless of who wins the election, there are certain mega trends that are shaping the world. And the advancement of technology is one of them. Lee believes that companies like Veeco, which are essential to these mega trends, are well positioned to deliver solid returns over the long term.
Got it. So even if there's short-term volatility in the market, these companies are likely to keep chugging along. Driven by these powerful underlying forces. It's like they're riding the wave of innovation.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, cool.
And that's a much more powerful and sustainable approach to investing than trying to time the market or predict its short-term swings.
Okay, so we've got a lot of tech-focused picks here.
We do.
But does Lee have any recommendations outside of the tech sector?
One company he's particularly bullish on was TG Therapeutics, a biotech company focused on treating serious diseases like multiple sclerosis.
Biotech can be a risky investment.
It can.
But the potential rewards can be huge if a company develops a successful treatment.
That's right.
Okay.
And Lee believes that TG Therapeutics has a very promising pipeline of drugs in development with the potential to significantly improve the lives of patients with these debilitating conditions.
So it's a bet on innovation in healthcare.
It is.
With the added bonus of potentially doing some good in the world.
And Lee's final pick in this group is Exelis Technologies, which, if you'll recall, specializes in ion implantation equipment.
Yes, those ion beams.
Used in semiconductor manufacturing.
We're back to the chips.
It seems like we can't escape them these days.
Right. It feels like that sometimes.
And with good reason.
Yeah.
As the demand for faster, more efficient chips continues to grow, companies like Exelis are going to be in high demand.
Okay, so we've got a lot of focus on the semiconductor industry.
We do.
But also some interesting picks in biotech and healthcare.
Yes.
It seems like Lee is casting a wide net. Looking for companies poised to thrive. Regardless of the election outcome or broader economic conditions.
That's the through line here.
Okay.
He's looking for resilience, innovation, and companies that are aligned with long-term growth trends.
So he's not just trying to pick the winners of the next election cycle. He's trying to pick the winners for the next decade.
And that's a much more powerful and sustainable approach to investing.
Well, this has been an incredibly insightful conversation.
It has.
I feel like I have a much better grasp of Tom Lee's thinking.
Good.
And how to apply his ideas to my own portfolio.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, this has been great.
And remember, this is just one perspective.
Right, of course.
It's important to do your own research and consider your own risk tolerance and investment goals.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But Lee's insights provide a valuable framework.
They do.
For thinking about how to navigate these uncertain times.
They remind us that while there's always going to be volatility in the market, there are also opportunities for those who are prepared and have a long-term perspective.
Well said.
Thank you.
Now, I know there are even more of Lee's granny shot picks.
There are.
Out there waiting to be discovered.
I know.
What other gems are you going to reveal to us in the next segment?
Stay tuned for part 3 of this deep dive.
Can't wait.
Where we'll uncover even more of Lee's hidden gems and explore some of the key takeaways from his analysis.
All right, we're back for the final stretch
of
our deep dive into Tom Lee's election market predictions and his granny shot stock picks.
Yeah.
I'm ready for more of those hidden gems you've been teasing us with.
Well, you know how we've been talking about the importance of resilience and innovation?
Right.
Lee's really focused on finding those companies that are not just weathering the storm, but are actually thriving in the midst of all the uncertainty.
Those companies that are hitting those granny shots, the ones that are almost guaranteed to go in no matter what's happening in the world around them.
And one company that really embodies that idea is Ultra Clean Holdings. Ultra Clean Holdings.
Remember, they're a key player
in the semiconductor industry, providing essential parts for the equipment that manufactures those tiny but powerful chips.
Yeah, the ones that are in everything these days, from our phones to our cars.
Exactly.
It seems like a pretty safe bet
that
the demand for those chips is only going to increase.
That's what Lee's banking on. He sees Ultra Clean as a rock-solid play on the infrastructure behind all the technology we rely on. They're not making the chips themselves. But they're making sure the companies that do have the tools they need to keep up with that demand.
So it's like investing in the picks and shovels.
Exactly.
During a gold rush, but for the tech industry.
And it's a smart way to play the tech boom without necessarily taking on the volatility of investing in individual tech stocks.
Okay, I'm liking this picks and shovels approach.
Good.
What other companies fit into that category?
Another one that stands out is Amkor Technology.
Amkor Technology.
They focus on semiconductor packaging and testing, which, as we discussed earlier, is a crucial part of the chip-making process.
They're the ones who make sure those tiny chips can actually function properly in all those devices we rely on.
And as chips become more complex and powerful, driven by trends like AI, 5G, and the Internet of Things, the need for specialized packaging and testing becomes even more critical.
Makes sense.
It does.
It's all about ensuring those chips can handle the demands of our increasingly tech-driven world.
And Amkor is right in the sweet spot of that trend. Lee likes that it's a way to profit from the broader tech boom without necessarily taking on the volatility of individual tech stocks.
So we've got Ultra Clean Holdings providing the equipment that makes the chips. And Amkor Technology making sure those chips are ready for prime time.
Exactly.
It's like a tag team for tech dominance. What else is on Lee's list of granny shot picks?
Another company that's caught his eye is Veeco Instruments.
Veeco Instruments.
They provide essential equipment for both semiconductor and LED manufacturers.
LEDs, those are just light bulbs, right?
LEDs are a lot more than just light bulbs these days. They're used in everything from smartphones and TVs to car headlights and traffic lights.
Wow.
They're incredibly energy efficient and versatile.
I see.
And the demand for them is growing rapidly.
So it's another play on the evolution of technology. But how does this tie into the election and Lee's overall market outlook?
Regardless of who wins the election, there are certain mega trends that are shaping the world, and the advancement of technology is one of them. Lee believes that companies like Veeco, which are essential to these mega trends, are well positioned to deliver solid returns over the long term.
Got it. So even if there's short-term volatility in the market, these companies are likely to keep chugging along.
Exactly.
Driven by these powerful underlying forces.
It's like they're riding the wave of innovation.
Exactly.
And that's a much more powerful and sustainable approach to investing than trying to time the market or predict short-term swings.
So I've got a lot of tech-focused picks here.
We do.
Does Lee have any recommendations outside of the tech sector?
One company he's particularly bullish on is Blueprint Medicines Corp.
Blueprint Medicines.
They're doing some really fascinating work in precision oncology, developing targeted cancer treatments.
Wow, personalized cancer treatment.
Yes.
That's incredible.
It is.
It feels like we're living in the future of medicine.
And Lee sees Blueprint Medicines as a leader in this field, perfectly aligned with the trend toward more personalized, effective healthcare solutions.
So it's a bet on innovation and compassion.
I like it.
Good.
What else?
Lee's final pick in this group brings us back to the world of semiconductors.
Okay.
Axcelis Technologies.
Axcelis.
They specialize in ion implantation equipment.
Ah, yes, those ion beams.
Which, as you may recall, is a critical step in the chip-making process.
It seems like we can't get away from
it doesn't there.
Those tiny but mighty chips.
And for good reason.
Yeah.
As the demand for faster and more efficient chips continues to grow, companies like Axcelis are going to be in high demand.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have. If we were to distill Tom Lee's advice into a few key takeaways, what would they be?
First, be prepared for volatility. Elections, by their very nature, create uncertainty, and uncertainty often breeds market swings.
Don't panic, but be ready for some bumps along the way.
Exactly.
Got it. What else?
Second, recognize that market swings, while nerve-wracking, can also create opportunities. If you have a well-thought-out strategy and a bit of patience, you might be able to capitalize on those dips and ride the market back up.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's about seeing the potential amidst the chaos.
Right.
What's the final takeaway?
Don't just blindly follow someone else's picks, even if it is a respected strategist like Tom Lee. Consider your own risk tolerance and investment goals. Do your own research and make decisions that align with your personal financial situation.
Excellent advice.
Thank you.
Always do your homework. But even beyond Lee's specific predictions and stock picks, there's a broader lesson here about the interplay between market psychology and external events.
Exactly.
Elections are just one example of how factors outside of pure financial fundamentals can influence investor behavior. And understanding that dynamic is crucial for anyone looking to navigate the markets successfully. It's not just about the number.
It's not.
It's about the human element.
Exactly.
The emotions that drive our decisions.
Well said.
So even if Lee's specific predictions don't pan out exactly as he envisions, we can still learn a great deal from his analysis and apply those insights to our own investment strategies.
And that's what this deep dive has been all about.
It has.
Thanks for joining us
on
this exploration of election market predictions and Tom Lee's insightful strategies.
This has been really interesting. Until next time.
See you later.
Remember to stay curious, stay informed, and happy investing.